Hey guys, it's Elon from Inside Fighting, and today we're going to do a very unique video. If you're interested in what combat sports are good for self-defense and the fundamental differences between combat sports in general and self-defense, and why I say they're not a complete solution to the puzzle, stay tuned. You're going to like this one.
Pow, pow. Inside fighting, yeah. Dangerous martial arts. Pow, pow. Ooh, ah.
All right, so before I get started, as always, if you're going through any type of acute injury, any type of chronic illness, I myself suffer from an autoimmune disease. It has been terrible for my entire life. This is one of the reasons my friend and I got together. We worked with one of the best labs in the United States. This is not a sponsorship. This is a product I helped develop. It's called No Man Labs Collagen. It's a peptide, an amazing amino acid profile high in glycine, proline, hydroxyproline, very low molecular weight, so it's very bioavailable. And what that means is it's going to support your bones, your joints, and your connective tissue. It also very much helps the gut. As someone with Crohn's, I know for a fact. I've been through a lot. I was told I'd never walk again at one point. I got through it. Collagen was one of the things that I started finding at that point that really helped make a difference in my body. And since then, I've had injuries that doctors would tell me 100% I need surgery, and I would find natural paths to get better. So this is a product I really believe in. 50% off if you use the code INSIDEFIGHTING50. I'll put it in the description below. Go check it out. It's helped numerous people who have already been using it. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful product. If you're an athlete, if you have an injury, or if you have chronic illness, it's a great supplement that will help you. All right, that's my pitch. Now, let's jump into what I wanted to talk about today, which is self-defense versus combat sports. I say this as someone who all my life loved combat sports and thought it was the answer. We're talking about back in the 90s. And I'll give you a little story of how I came into combat sports. I'd been doing Filipino martial arts. I grew up doing Muay Thai, but I wasn't competitive. So those were my two bases, Filipino martial arts and Muay Thai, which is a combat sport. But again, I didn't really have it from the perspective of like, I just thought I'm invincible, pretty much. That was me as a young guy. And then a jiu-jitsu guy came to our academy, and this is like in the 90s, and just tapped me out a bunch of times, and I got obsessed with jiu-jitsu. I thought it was a superpower. And after 26 years of this, right? So 26 years of being the combat sports advocate above all other martial arts, they're all bullshito if they're not combat sports. I slowly started having changes in my viewpoint and realizing that there's a lot more outside the combat sports world that is relevant to actual combatives than just combat sports. I'm going to go over some key elements here, and we're going to look at some sparring. By the way, some of the sparring footage, and let me just get this on. These are some of the best guys in the world. Let me just get this video here going. This is some high-level boxing sparring. When I said best guys in the world, I'm talking about the Muay Thai video I'm going to put on next, and I have Craig Jones for jiu-jitsu as my example. But these guys are some solid, aggressive boxers. I brought up boxing first because to me, boxing is the best combat sport example of something that will translate very, very, very quickly, directly, and efficiently to self-defense. It's the best example of a combat sport that you can learn to immediately get good at self-defense, and there's a reason for it. 95% short of people who actually want to end you, meaning kill you, are going to have a fist fight with you. And boxers, as much as people say they have no grappling ability, if you're fighting an untrained guy in the street, chances are your footwork will be good enough and your base will be good enough. Like you can see, these guys are still rooting. They're still planting. They still have a proper stance. It's not like you could just take people down easy. That's the greatest myth I've always felt in my life when sparring with people, even people who didn't have a grappling background. I'm a black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I did sambo, and I'm pretty decent at takedowns. I did some wrestling. I'm not bad at takedowns. If you just tell me, take this guy down while he punches you in the head, and he's kind of aware I'm going to take them down, and he's an athletic guy, it's not always as easy as people make it seem. So boxers in general do have incredible balance, incredible footwork. These are all very important things for self-defense, but I'm going to make a very important point right now. The way they're sparring is not the way that an average person can spar 2 to 3 times a week for 10 years. They'll have brain trauma. They'll be injured. It will affect their work. These are people who want to be competitors. And this is a very important distinguishing point when people get into combat sports for self-defense. Is your goal longevity? Is your goal self-defense? Or is it to be a competitor? Because if you want to be a competitor and the application of it is also to be effective on the street, then I will say that boxing is absolutely incredible, but it comes with major, major caveats, which is head trauma, which is repeated abuse. The gym culture for boxing is very aggressive. That's also, again, what makes it efficient, because I'm going to move on from here. I'm going to move on to actually Muay Thai, which is going to be a weird comparison on that note of aggression. But again, 95% of people in a street fight who are not using weapons will attack with their fists, primarily an overhand right. That's about a 95% of the time. I wanted to put street fights on the channel while reviewing to show you guys, because I've done deep analysis into all of this, but I can't because my video will just get flagged and then it won't get views. So you're going to have to trust me. The majority of attacks almost all over the world, but primarily in Western civilization, is an aggressive overhand right, because people want to hurt you. Boxers are just incredibly effective at dealing with that because it's where they spend their entire time, right? They're dealing with tools that are almost guaranteed to be used in a street fight, which is punches. You're not guaranteed to be elbowed in a street fight. You're not guaranteed to be headbutted. You're not guaranteed to be kicked. You are guaranteed almost to be punched when someone's angry at you. There's just something biological about it. There's something inherent about it. So boxing deals with that almost exclusively. Another thing boxing is incredible for is ending the opponent or the threat very fast. Because when you throw a 1-2 knuckle sandwich, ladies and gentlemen, into someone's face, they're unconscious typically, or they're wobbled enough that they don't want to keep fighting. It allows you to keep distance after that and fight other people. So boxing, best for multiple opponents, period. End of story. I don't care what people say. Boxing's ability to get in and out, boxing's ability to have circular footwork, to read punches. And another unique thing about boxing, compared to other striking styles I've done, is there's such an emphasis on not blocking as much, but moving your head, moving your feet and moving your head, as you just saw there, is a primary tool for defense versus covering up, staying tight. See how they manage distance. Boxers rely less on what I would call blocking and more on evasion and range than a lot of other combat sports. It's an incredibly important tool for real self-defense, because even when we talk about things like weapons, you're not blocking weapons. You're not going to be doing this to a knife that's coming to stab you here. You might weave under it and then crack the guy and end him, right? Like if you can read a fist coming at you at the speed that boxers punch at each other, you can read a knife. And because your techniques are designed already to evade, not to block, or even to parry so the knife continues going, a lot of boxers will parry. You're just more suited to defend yourself against weapons and multiple opponents. The downsides are the gloves, for one. I said head trauma is one downside. Gloves are another downside. Meaning, I've seen a lot of boxers go into BKFC, pretty legit guys, even I've seen in bare knuckle fights, not only in BKFC, but guys have just boxed most of their lives getting into a street fight, and they think this will be enough, right? And that they can move just enough. This is not enough. Like if you don't have time, if you're just staying there like this, like boxers will allow themselves to be touched. If you're just staying like this, right, or kind of just hoping your shoulder will be enough, there's too much exposure when the person doesn't have a glove on. You still get hit. And with bare knuckle, it takes one. And again, in a street fight, there's no one to come stop and give you an 8 count when you're dropped. That's it. It's done. So, yeah, sometimes the gloves become a counterintuitive training tool because people get comfortable not really covering their head. Like this is, I said not to do this because of weapons, but this is far more safe against punches. I always say rhino in is a major part of what I teach people. But look, this is never a position you would see in boxing. You just would never see this. But it is a good position for driving in on someone in a self-defense situation. And I'll get into why at the end. I have a whole list here of things I wanted to cover, and I'm going to break down the variables at the end. But first, I want to give you my views on different combat sports. And boxing, as I said earlier, is missing grappling, but whatever. I'm looking at it as a striking style. So what do we notice right away with Muay Thai? And by the way, These are two of my favorite Muay Thai fighters. We notice, different than boxing, we notice something very, very unique here. An acceptance of the range they will fight at. So if I go back to the boxing video, what you'll notice is there was always someone moving forward and always someone moving back or circling out. Now, that's important because in a real fight, people do not accept range. They don't square off, stand right at punching range, and wait and counter. They're aggressive. They want to hurt you. They throw aggressively and move forward aggressively. But Muay Thai in general, and I've trained this most of my life, treats sparring like a game. Now, does this mean that these guys can't defend themselves and whoop someone in a street fight? Obviously not, but they're among the best examples. Does it mean that an average Muay Thai fighter is not learning how to defend himself? Absolutely not. They are. But is it the most effective thing? So here's my questions to you. Are you going to kick like that in a street fight? No. No. If you do, it's actually a very dangerous thing to do. You're allowing your body to be on one leg in an environment where you have no margin of error. Meaning, if you trip, you don't know what the ground is like, if you land wrong, all those things can result in you dying. Because if you end up on the ground and you're not very well trained, or if he has multiple opponents or multiple friends with him, they're going to start stomping on your head. So kicking right away is not the most effective tool in a street fight. Maybe low line kicks, but Muay Thai has a whole lot of, you can see these guys are going for mid-range to high-range roundhouse kicks incredibly effectively and beautifully. But again, it's not what I would do in a street fight or the average person should do. Okay. Now, there are some kicks that are incredibly effective, like the type of teep he just threw, which is not a standard teep. It's like a stomp teep. I don't even believe that low-line roundhouse kicks are an effective tool in street fighting for most people, unless you're very high level. And again, so the fundamental difference here is for Muay Thai, sparring is play. Sparring is a form of drilling, and it should be. Less head trauma. These guys are not giving each other head trauma. They're playing. They're exchanging. And that's another thing about Muay Thai. Muay Thai has a big agreement of a lot of exchanges. Whereas in the boxing video we saw, there was an agreement. The guy who wanted to go and attack would attack. And in fact, if you didn't attack back, or if he saw weakness, he would go harder. In Muay Thai, you see they'll give a kick or 1-2, and then the other guy will give a kick or 1-2, and they'll cover up. And then, as you can see, he's trying to find an opening. It's more technical. It's almost more intelligent. It's more playful. But you can see they're taking turns in a way. Some Kyokushin can develop a type of turn-based fighting because it's like you stay tight, you stay in the pocket, and I love this kind of sparring. To me, this is more enjoyable. It's more pleasurable. It results in less injuries. It's more technical. This is how I spar. But I also realize the limitations. It's almost antithetical to self-defense, because in self-defense, what is someone going to do to me? Run at me aggressively, trying to take my head off. They're not going to allow an exchange like this to happen. 9 out of 10 times. They want to end you, like I said. So this type of training might be fun. It might be safer. It might be more technical. It might be more, but it's more of a sport. That doesn't mean I don't find Muay Thai to be an incredibly effective martial art. I just think that there's a very unique limitation there for a lot of striking styles where they make the agreement, you're going to stand at this range, I'm going to stand at this range. We're not going to try and take each other's heads off, and we're just going to tap, boom, 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 and then cover, right? And then now it's your turn. Now it's my turn. Or I might counter here as you're punching, like you jab, I might slip under and catch you, but I'm not going to continue aggressively to the point of trying to just end the fight, because it's not a fight. And again, the average person is not going to be a Muay Thai competitor. So we have to look at how they're sparring in the gym, and does that sparring translate to self-defense? So is your time spent learning how to throw roundhouse kicks and some of the other stuff and fighting at the range you do, at the pace you do, is that the most effective way to train? And I'll answer that at the end. I'll give you what I believe the most effective drills for combatives, real self-defense are. Okay, so those are my notes on Muay Thai and why it's kind of secondary to something like boxing, right? You don't need to learn how to block a roundhouse kick. Now, where does a couple bonuses for Muay Thai? Knees and elbows and clinch. Incredibly effective tools for the street. There's some guys at Muay Thai who are so effective at clinching that you cannot move once they grab your neck. Elbows are my favorite tool for self-defense. Favorite, hands down, period. There's a rule in the universe. When you extend your body to hurt somebody, I want to punch you. even if I try to hide behind my shoulder as I punch, boom, I'm still leaving an opening, because the second I take my hands away from my face, second I leave my body to attack yours, I create an opportunity for harm back, kind of like a rule in the universe. The only part of the body that doesn't apply to in the same way is, number one, headbutts and elbows. So when I'm here and I throw an elbow, what am I actually doing? I'm actually covering up. Now, you could throw elbows like this, but I'm saying you actually can throw an elbow as a block. So it's a simultaneous attack and defense. That doesn't exist really with punches in the same way. So Muay Thai gives you that. You just don't see many people sparring with elbows in Muay Thai, because you have to get pads, and it's a whole process, and it's just not as common to really do sparring with elbows. But elbow sparring is incredibly effective for self-defense. And I'm going to actually, like I said, talk about the drills I do with my students at the end that I've been doing for years. And numerous students of mine have defended themselves in the street. I rather, by the way, have a school where after 10 years, I have hundreds of students who've told me, let's say dozens of students who've told me, I was confronted in the street and I got out okay, versus I won a gold medal in a jiu-jitsu match, or, I won my first Muay Thai match. I think that's an amazing accomplishment. But in the end of the day, hearing students actually manage to defend themselves when they needed it, to me, that's a much bigger thing personally. It's what I want to create more than I want to create like a team of fighters. So here we have Craig Jones, jiu-jitsu. Now, I'm separating jiu-jitsu into two categories. It's almost modern day catch, jiu-jitsu, no-gi. And when I say catch, I'm talking about catch as can wrestling. These guys are kind of a modern wave of jiu-jitsu. So jiu-jitsu, I've criticized before. I have a whole video on it, so I'm not going to spend too much time. But grappling styles in general that are not throwing-based systems are great for understanding body mechanics, the best for understanding body mechanics, great for understanding control. And again, a guy like Craig Jones, I'm not too worried about Craig Jones defending himself in a street fight. But there's major pieces of the puzzle missing for self-defense. And a lot of the time, I actually get annoyed by how much people think jiu-jitsu is either the best self-defense or even like top 5. There's some major fundamental issues in the nature of the sport that make it limited for self-defense. Number one, right off the bat, emphasis on takedowns. It's heavily lacking in the takedown department compared to other grappling styles. And then you go one step further and you say a concession to being on the ground. In fact, a predisposition to it. Jiu-jitsu guys do not like being on their feet. They like being on the ground. It's counterintuitive to self-defense. It's not the place you want to be. You won't see a knife coming to stab you if you're on the ground. You won't see his friend coming to stomp you in the head. And concrete is a major deterrent. I know this as someone who got in a street fight recently and was on concrete, and I was trying to avoid the ground like the plague. I don't need someone taking my head and smashing it into the ground, no matter how good my jiu-jitsu is. Okay? And the last and not least is jiu-jitsu doesn't even deal with strikes. So as much as people criticize other styles, there's a lot of things missing in jiu-jitsu. The other thing about jiu-jitsu is that it's relaxed a lot of the time. Because of the nature of the sport, it's like human chess. You could see so high level, Craig Jones. And actually, it's good that it's relaxed because that's how you avoid injuries. But oddly enough, all my injuries came from jiu-jitsu at the same time. Jiu-jitsu or grappling styles. Being thrown is how I tore my ACL originally. But then on the ground, people going for heel hooks. People like this kid wants to prove a point. Just right away jumped into an anaconda or he's going for a darce very aggressively on Craig Jones. And it looks like Craig Jones just doesn't care. It's crazy how he just doesn't tap to the extreme aggression. It's guys like Craig Jones, again, are not the example of what the average person will do. And I love that excuse when people are like, well, Gordon Ryan can defend himself in the street. I certainly hope Gordon Ryan, the best jiu-jitsu guy to ever live, who's like 225 pounds of roided muscle, can defend himself on the street when he dedicates 10 hours a day to training. That's his life. I mean, that's not my reference point for self-defense or what you should train. My reference point is what can the average person in the system do? The average person in jiu-jitsu nowadays in most schools is not going to know how to block a punch, is not going to have very effective takedowns against someone who's highly aggressive, and has never done any pre-fight training or dealt with the primary range that fights start at, even though the ground might be where a lot of them end at. So they're missing a major part of the puzzle. Doesn't mean it's not effective. I'm just pointing out the errors in each grappling style, which is why it moves down the list. Now, even further down the list is gi jiu-jitsu. These guys are great. Their movement is beautiful. This guy is a purple belt, moves like a black belt. Okay, period, end of story. Just has incredibly fluid movement. And they're showing the sweeps they're using. Now, gi jiu-jitsu takes everything I didn't think was effective about no-gi jiu-jitsu and amplifies it by 100-fold. You're relying on grips, as he's pointing out now, to get your moves. Those grips don't exist in the street. And if they do, the shirt usually rips or other problems happen. Gi jiu-jitsu is much more technical, in my opinion, and you just can't get away with the same kind of athleticism, same kind of quick movement. And a lot of street fighting, again, is aggressive movement. And these grips will get you punched in the head. You cannot do this stuff on concrete. It's overly complicated. Old school jiu-jitsu, where they taught you how to take someone down, get into mount, choke them out, and you just did that over and over and over, is more than enough for the average person to learn how to defend themselves. You will never end up in this position in a street fight. And if you do, there's something wonky going on. You should not end up in this position. Okay, and I know everyone who trains jiu-jitsu is going to say, just because we train it doesn't mean we're going to do it. Obviously, we won't pull guard in the street. Obviously, we won't hold these grips in the street because we're going to get punched. No, what you do in the gym all day, every day, is what you're going to do when you're under pressure and your life's in danger in the street. You'll just do it less efficiently, but you're still going to do the same thing. This is proven. Every scientific study on adrenal stress responses shows that people revert back to what they are comfortable doing. So if you've never practiced repeatedly being punched in the head, if you've never practiced getting back up to your feet, and this is what you are practicing, you will revert to this, except the guy will then be punching you, grabbing your hair and slamming it into the concrete, going for your eyes. It's a different reality. I'm going to show a video that I actually think is an example of wonderful grappling style for self-defense, and it's combat sambo. I'm a huge combat sambo fan. Combat sambo, though, is like MMA. It covers all ranges, covers a lot of aggression, covers kicks. So this is a very translatable system to self-defense. And I think people who train combat sambo will be very efficient at self-defense. They'll be less efficient in terms of the speed of efficiency compared to someone who just does boxing. Meaning, if you told me, hey, you only have 3 months to 6 months to train for self-defense, boxing, in terms of combat sports. If you told me you have 3 to 5 years, combat sambo. There's just more to learn. You're learning takedowns, you're learning ground fighting, you're learning striking, and their striking is clearly not as good as a boxer. Not that these are the highest level sambo guys, but you could see there. And if you look at combat sambo matches, one thing that I will say that's great is that the guys fight like it's a street fight. Same for Kudo, right? Daido Juko. If you look at a lot of the Kudo guys, they run in and it's hyper aggressive. It's like MMA on steroids in terms of the speed at which they're trying to finish the fight. And you see that a lot with combat sambo guys. There's not the same complacency that you might see in MMA. And that's one of my main points I'm going to jump to, because I'm going to jump to my final notes here, which is, let's go over the quick fundamental differences between self-defense and combat sports and break down each one very quickly. So again, what are we looking at? We're looking at the average person. What is best for the average person? Not an elite level athlete, not a wannabe competitor or world champion. So these are people that are training 2 to 3 times a week. These are people who don't want to get injured. And these are people who are not in the best athletic shape typically, because if they are, they're pretty much covered for self-defense as is. If you're a jacked 220-pound guy, you're not at that much risk of being attacked. And if you are attacked, you're probably going to do better than most people automatically. All right, so what's the first one? There's a big differentiating factor from self-defense to combat sports. And every combat sports athlete who's had this happen to them or been in a street fight will realize this. Preparation. When you spar, when you go to the gym, even if you're a pro fighter, when you go do your pro fight, you've prepared for that moment. Both mentally, you know it's coming, you're aware, you've trained for it, When I go to the gym and I know it's going to be a hard sparring day, I actually mentally prep for it. Like I know that I'm like, okay, I know this is coming. In a street fight, you're ambushed half the time. You're not ready for it. You might be walking down the street. You had a bad day. You didn't sleep that night. You have a migraine. You didn't eat breakfast. And now all of a sudden, at the worst time possible, some dude is trying to hurt you. And you're like, oh God, like you just don't want to be there. You don't want it to be happening. And it's a completely different level of stress because you don't have any preparation for it and you can't by definition prepare for it. You don't know the variables. And that's what this all comes down to, because the rest of this list is just variables. Street fights have infinite variables. Combat sports have very specific limited variables. So what's the first one? Duration. You know the duration of a sparring match. You know the duration of a fight. You do not know the duration of a self-defense confrontation. And oftentimes they are, and because of that, pacing changes, right? So if I know I'm sparring someone 10 minutes in a jiu-jitsu, I'm going to roll for 10 minutes straight with the same guy, I pace myself. And I can, again, it's in terms of preparation, even in the moment as it's starting and the coach goes, we got 10 minutes, we're going to do 3 rounds, 10 minutes each. Pace yourself. You'll hear it being said. In a street fight, that doesn't exist as a concept. In a street fight, the guy is coming at you and he's coming at you full force. He'll probably be tired after 30 seconds, but you know what? You will be too. I don't care how conditioned you are. Once that adrenaline hits, you will be exhausted after 30 seconds. And if he doesn't stop or his friend keeps coming, it's very, very scary. The duration, not knowing the duration of how long the fight will last, is a very hard thing to deal with. It's odd, but it's hard. Second one, distance. I kind of touched on this. Boxing does this the best. Boxing is aggressive by nature. They're always moving forward. But if you look at a lot of other martial arts, combat sports, there is an acceptance of distance. We are going to fight at this distance. In jiu-jitsu, you're accepting you're going to fight on the ground and it's going to stay on the ground. In Muay Thai, you kind of accept that medium range to clinch range, and that exchange, that kind of exchange that I talked about. Even in boxing, to some extent, you know the distance the fight will be at. You know that guys aren't going to just double leg takedown you. So in a street fight, distance becomes a much harder thing to manage in the sense that you know where it's going to be. It's just not in a range that most people train at, and it's an uncomfortable range, which is right in your face, spitting on your face, right here, and just attacking you aggressively moving forward. It's like Clay Guida. People had a hard time dealing with Clay Guida in MMA because he was a unique kind of fighter in the sense that he just kept walking forward at you. A lot of the time in street fights, I've seen that happen. Predictability. Let's go through this one fast. So predictability is an interesting one. When you fight a Muay Thai guy, even if he's high level, you kind of know what to expect. When you go to boxing, you kind of know what to expect. When I go to jiu-jitsu, even if they can whoop my ass, I know what to expect. In a street fight, I don't know what to expect. You know who hits me the most or hurts me the most in jiu-jitsu? The white belt who's spazzy, who I'm not expecting his elbow to come whipping around and it catches me in the eye. And then I have a black eye right here. For some reason, this area always gets hit and always bruises. And it's always by a spazzy white belt that I just get so pissed off at. But I'm like, that's what the reality of self-defense is. The reality of self-defense is no matter how well-trained you are, you're used to fighting other well-trained people. And when someone comes in and they punch like this, like weird and like this, it takes one to kind of catch your chin on a weird angle, and then you're down on the ground being stomped on. The next one, numbers. The number of people attacking you, multiple attackers. Again, I think boxing is best suited to deal with this. Any clinching system, any system that requires you to go to the ground or throw is going to limit your ability to fight multiple people. That's just another variable. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, you can never beat multiple people, so why even train for it? Give me a break. You might not have a high statistical chance of beating multiple people, but you train to increase the small statistical chance even a little bit. It's the same reason we train with weapons. Next, environment. This is something that no combat sport really deals with. If there's a chair, pick it up and use it. If there's a bottle, pick it up and use it. If you're on concrete, you can't go to the ground, but you can use it as a weapon for the guy's face to be hit into. Anything is in your environment is a tool or something that can be used against you. And unless you train to be aware of those things, you will not be. And then in a real life situation, your boxing, your MMA, your Muay Thai, the other guy hasn't trained those things. He hasn't. In fact, those things condition you not to see those things. They condition you to see your opponent, right? And so if you take that out of the equation, a lot of guys in street fights who've been doing it for a long time are hyper aware of their environment. Here's another one, intent. I don't care if people are like, I'm going to kill the guy in the ring when I get in there. They're not. It's very rare that someone actually dies in the ring, and it's a tragedy when it happens. And most MMA fighters, most jiu-jitsu guys, most Muay Thai guys are not actually trying to commit murder in the ring. There are rules. And so the intent of the person is to win the fight. And especially, again, we're talking about average people sparring in a gym. The intent is just to touch each other, which is very important to note also. The intent is not to really hurt the person. But in a street fight, the intent of the other person is most likely to kill you or to really hurt you. They're in a bad mood. They want to knock you out. If weapons are in play, the goal is to kill you. And that's scary. And that changes the way the behavior is, and it changes the dynamic of what the exchange is. Because by definition, at that point, you have the disadvantage. You are the victim or the potential victim of someone who's trying to do something very bad to you. So the scale starts off like this, as opposed to most sparring or fights where it's like this. It's even. It starts off at a disadvantage psychologically. You didn't come into that day saying, I'm going to take advantage of someone and destroy them. They did. They came and they saw you, or they had, or even worse, their wife just left them, their dog just died, their kid has cancer, God forbid, and you're the guy. You're the guy that's going to be taken out on. That's the last person you want to fight. Okay? Last but not least, aggression, which ties into intent. Street fights are unpredictable, wild bursts of aggression. All combat sports are typically technical, paced attacks with technical intention. They're antithetical to each other. They're fundamentally different. They're opposed. They're not the same world. And so these differences, although they might seem small, are massive. It's why you have to combine combatives into your combat sports and do drills where someone puts on MMA gloves, pins you against a wall, and just does this to you wildly, and just hug and cover up and see if you can then close in on them and clinch them, throw them into the wall and get out. There's all types of self-defense drills that if you just did, environment-based drills, all types of stuff, and pre-fight awareness, that if you train these things, will complement your combat sports tremendously. But people don't do it. They just think combat sports are the cream of the crop and the answer to everything. They're a great part of training tools that can make you more efficient for self-defense. But self-defense is a multifaceted issue because of the unpredictable, unlimited amount of variables at play. That's the video. Hope you liked it. It's a long one, but I've wanted to do this for a while, and I think it's an important video because of some of the delusions out there that I see. Like and subscribe. Let me know what you want to see next. I'm very open to ideas.